After years of betrayal by women drawn to wealth, Ntim, a humble houseboy with a deep and powerful secret, decides to turn the tables. Pretending to be rich, he embarks on a quest to see if women are truly gold diggers or capable of genuine love and support. As Ntim weaves through relationships built on deceit, suspense grips the story at every turn. Will Ntim's secret stay hidden, or will his plan backfire in ways he never imagined? The twists and shocks will leave you wondering, can love conquer deception, or is it all a game of trust? Anima stood on the bustling streets of Kumasi, the sun mercilessly beating down on her as she balanced a basket of bananas on her head. Sweat trickled down her brow, but she didn't mind. Life had never been easy for her, but she had learned to endure. Each day she hoped to sell enough to afford a simple meal and maybe, just maybe, keep a roof over her head. She was barely holding on, but her spirit remained unbroken. Yet, deep inside, there was a quiet longing for more, for love, for a better life. One day, a familiar face appeared before her, someone who always brought a hint of light into her world. Ntim, the handsome, self-assured young man, greeted her with his usual charming smile. "Hey, Anima," he said, his voice warm as he pointed to the bananas. "How much for all of them today?" "All of them? Again?" Anima was startled. He often did this, buy her entire stock, and even tip her generously. "It's too much, I can't let you—" "Of course you can," Ntim interrupted with a playful wink. "I like your bananas, and I like helping you. What's wrong with that?" Anima's heart fluttered, not just because of his words, but because of how effortlessly kind he was. She had grown fond of Ntim, though she was too humble to admit it. In her mind, she wasn't worthy of someone like him. He came from a world she only saw in passing, a world where people wore expensive clothes and lived in mansions. She sold bananas for a living. As the days turned into weeks, Ntim became more than just a customer. He was her loyal friend, someone who showed up when she least expected it, brightening her day. He made her laugh, asked about her family, and for the first time in a long time, Anima felt seen. One evening, under the golden hue of the setting sun, Ntim approached her with a different kind of smile. His eyes held a seriousness she hadn't seen before. "Anima," he began softly, "there's something I need to tell you. I've been coming here for months now, and I think it's time I admit that I have feelings for you. I want to be with you." Anima's breath caught in her throat. She looked at him in disbelief. "But I'm just a poor girl from a village," she stammered. "You deserve someone better. Someone not like me." Ntim shook his head, stepping closer. "Anima, love isn't about money or status. It's about what we feel, what's in our hearts, and my heart belongs to you." Tears welled up in Anima's eyes. She had never heard such words before, and they struck her deeply. Could someone truly love her for who she was? Their relationship blossomed after that day, and Ntim became a rock in Anima's life. But as time passed, financial struggles weighed heavily on her. One night, Anima, fighting back tears, turned to Ntim. I can't afford my rent anymore. I don't know what to do." Without missing a beat, Ntim replied, "Then come live with me." Anima hesitated. "But I can't stay with a man unless we're married. It's not right." Ntim took her hands in his, looking earnestly into her eyes. "Anima, we love each other. Let's take this time to get to know each other better before we prepare for marriage. We're going to be together forever anyway." Faced with no other option and trusting the man she loved, Anima agreed. For months, they lived together in what seemed like a perfect world. Ntim even offered to meet her parents, and when they traveled to her village in a beautiful car, Anima's family beamed with pride, happily accepting Ntim's proposal to marry their daughter. But the illusion shattered one fateful afternoon when an older, wealthy man showed up at Ntim's house. He stormed inside, barely acknowledging Anima before turning to Ntim with cold, sharp words. "Is this how you take care of my house?" the man, Mr. Bonsu, barked. "I leave for a few years, and you bring a woman to live here." Anima froze, her heart racing. What was happening? Mr. Bonsu wasn't just a visitor. He was the owner of the house. "Boss, please, let me explain," Ntim stammered, his tone humble and subservient. "I've been taking care of your property, managing your business. I would never harm you." Anima's world crumbled in that moment. Ntim wasn't the rich, self-made man he claimed to be. Everything, the house, the car, even the life he had painted for her, was a lie. She stood there, her chest tightening with betrayal, wondering how the man she loved could deceive her so deeply. Anima stood in shock as Mr. Bonsu delivered the final blow, his voice firm and unwavering. "Ntim, I'm back for good. I'll be staying here with my family, and I don't know when I'll return abroad. You need to pack your things and leave. I'll pay for your rent for 1 year, but after that, you're on your own. Find a place and start over. I won't cover your expenses beyond this." He paused, his eyes fixed on Ntim, who was trembling. "You can also forget about your position. I'm taking back the house and my business. You'll have to find a job somewhere else." Ntim's knees buckled, and he fell to the ground, pleading, "Boss, please don't do this. If you fire me, my life will be ruined. I won't survive without this job. I beg of you, don't take everything away from me." Mr. Bonsu looked down at him, a mixture of pity and frustration on his face. After a long silence, he sighed. "Fine, I won't leave you completely stranded, but you won't be a manager anymore. You'll start from the bottom, as an ordinary worker. If you want it, take it. If not, I can't help you." With no other choice, Ntim nodded through his tears. "I'll take it, boss. Thank you." Mr. Bonsu gave him a final look before walking out the door, leaving behind a shattered Ntim and a heartbroken Anima. As soon as Mr. Bonsu left, Ntim turned to Anima, his voice choked with emotion. "Anima, please, forgive me. I know I've lied to you about everything. I pretended to be someone I'm not because I was afraid you wouldn't love the real me. But I do love you. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but please, please find it in your heart to forgive me." Tears streamed down Anima's face as she stood still, her chest aching with the weight of betrayal. She looked at Ntim, her voice soft but firm. "Ntim, how could you? You didn't have to lie to win my heart. I would have loved you regardless. My love isn't about money or wealth." She paused, wiping her tears. "My parents were poor too. My mother loved my father even when they had nothing. You didn't need to pretend to be rich. I would have loved you just the same if you were honest." And Tim's sobs grew louder as he fell deeper into regret. "I'm sorry, Anima. I never meant to hurt you. I was just scared that if I showed you the real me, you'd walk away." After what felt like an eternity, Anima finally spoke, her voice softer now. "It's never too late, Ntim. If we're meant to be rich one day, then we'll be rich together. And if we stay poor, then our love will be enough to carry us through. I forgive you, but you must promise me that from now on, everything between us will be built on trust." Ntim looked at her in disbelief, unable to comprehend the depth of her forgiveness. You forgive me?" he asked, his voice shaking. Anima nodded. "Yes, Ntim, I do. But remember, love is all we need. If you can love me truthfully, then I'll stand by your side, no matter what happens." Ntim pulled her into a tight embrace, tears still flowing. "I promise, Anima, I'll love you forever, and I'll never lie to you again." With the money Mr. Bonsu had given him, Ntim rented a modest 2-bedroom apartment in Kumasi. Life took a sharp turn for both of them. Ntim, once living in luxury, was now an ordinary worker at Mr. Bonsu's company. His salary was barely enough to cover the basics, but he had no choice but to accept his new reality. Every day, he came home tired and frustrated, but each evening, Anima greeted him with a smile, a warm meal, and a love that never wavered. Anima, despite everything, continued selling her bananas on the streets. Her business, to her surprise, was thriving. Her unique customers who had grown fond of her would buy her bananas in bulk. She spent less time on the streets now as the demand for her bananas increased. But while her business was booming, Ntim struggled with his job. His salary wasn't enough to cover basic bills, and soon he found himself unable to pay for electricity or water. Anima, ever resilient, stepped up. She paid the bills, supported Ntim with transportation, and made sure their home was taken care of. She took on the responsibilities that society often placed on men, but she did so without complaint. She loved Ntim and understood that life was unpredictable. Despite their struggles, she remained hopeful. "Ntim," she said one evening as they sat together, "things will get better. We just need to be patient. We have each other, and that's more than enough." Ntim, filled with shame and gratitude, looked at her. "You're right, Anima. As long as I have you, we'll get through this." 6 months later, Ntim came home with tears streaming down his face, his body trembling with despair. His usually strong demeanor had crumbled. Anima, who was preparing dinner, rushed to him immediately, concern etched across her face. "Ntim, what happened?" she asked, her voice shaky with fear. He collapsed into a chair, burying his face in his hands. "I've been sacked, Anima," he said, barely able to get the words out. "Mr. Bonsu fired me, and he accused me of stealing." Anima's heart sank. "What? Stealing? What do you mean?" Ntim looked up at her, his eyes red from crying. "I was sent to Accra to buy goods. While I was there, I got robbed, at gunpoint. But Mr. Bonsu doesn't believe me. He thinks I stole the money myself and made up the robbery to cover it." Anima stared at him, her mind racing. "Ntim, tell me the truth. Did you—" "No, Anima," Ntim shouted, his voice filled with anguish. "I would never do such a thing. I swear, I was robbed. I lost everything." Anima wanted to believe him. She knew things had been hard for them, financially, emotionally, but she had always trusted Ntim. She had to, even if the doubt gnawed at her. She looked deep into his eyes and saw his pain. "Okay," she said softly, touching his shoulder. "I believe you." But deep down, a part of her couldn't help but wonder, could it be true? Could he have taken the money? Times had been tough, and desperate people sometimes made desperate decisions. But this was Ntim, the man she loved, the man who had always been there for her. She decided to stand by him, no matter what. The next day, their worst fear became reality. Around 1:30 p.m., There was a loud knock at the door. Ntim opened it, and standing there was Mr. Bonsu, flanked by 2 police officers. Without hesitation, they arrested Ntim, accusing him of theft. "Please, sir," Ntim pleaded, "I didn't steal anything. I was robbed." Mr. Bonsu sneered. "You can tell that to the judge. Until then, I want my money back, or I'll make sure you're locked up for good." As they took him away, Anima ran after them, her heart pounding in her chest. She watched as they shoved Ntim into the back of the police van, his eyes filled with helplessness. He was taken to the police station, where he told his side of the story, but Mr. Bonsu refused to believe him. To Mr. Bonsu, it was clear-cut. Ntim had stolen the money, and now he would face the consequences. Ntim was locked in a small, dimly lit cell, and Anima was left standing outside, feeling powerless but determined. For the next 2 days she visited him, offering words of comfort and bringing him food. Her love for him never wavered, despite the uncertainty surrounding his innocence. On the 2nd day, Anima returned to the station with a church elder who helped secure Ntim's release on bail. When he walked out, broken and disheveled, she embraced him tightly, whispering, "I'm here. We'll get through this." But the nightmare didn't end there. Mr. Bonsu made it clear that Ntim was no longer welcome at his company, leaving him jobless and uncertain about the future. Through all of this, Anima never left his side. She became his source of strength, always lifting him up when the weight of the world was too heavy for him to bear. "Don't give up on life, Ntim," she would say, her voice gentle yet firm. "If this happened, it's for a reason. Maybe it's a blessing in disguise. What is meant to be will always find its way." Ntim struggled to find work, and money became tighter. Anima, ever resilient, continued selling her bananas, but now she carried the weight of both of their lives on her shoulders. Some days she would come home with more money than expected, smiling as she handed it to Ntim. "Ntim," she'd say, "I made a good profit today. Some of my customers gave me tips. Take this money. We can save it for our wedding or use it for rent when it's due." Ntim took the money in his hands, but instead of feeling relief, he felt a deep sense of guilt. Tears welled up in his eyes, and he broke down. "Anima, why are you doing this for me? I've failed you. I've failed myself. You deserve better than this." Anima knelt beside him, holding his hands tightly, her eyes filled with compassion. "Ntim, don't say that. You took care of me when I had nothing. You gave me a place to stay when I was homeless. You showed me love when I had no one. Now it's my turn to take care of you. Love isn't about who has more or who does what. We're in this together." Ntim, overwhelmed by her kindness and unwavering love, pulled her close and wept into her shoulder. "I promise you, Anima, I'll make things right. I'll never stop loving you." Anima smiled softly, brushing away his tears. "We'll get through this, Ntim. Together. No matter what, we'll be okay. As long as we have each other, nothing else matters." Their love remained the foundation of their lives, stronger than ever, even in the face of hardship. Together, they would continue to fight for a better future, knowing that with love, anything was possible. One sunny afternoon, Anima was busy selling her bananas on the streets of Kumasi when a tall, handsome young man approached her stall. His polished appearance stood out, and with a charming smile, he greeted her. "How much for 100 cedis worth of bananas?" he asked, his voice smooth and confident. After paying for the bananas, the man handed her an additional 300 cedis. "Consider this a tip for your hard work and beauty," he said with a wink. Anima was taken aback by his generosity, but thanked him politely. "Thank you, sir. That's very kind of you." The next day, the same man returned. He bought more bananas and once again handed her 400 cedis as a tip. Anima graciously accepted it, not thinking much of it, and later that evening she gave the money to Ntim. "Lately, people are buying more bananas, and I'm getting generous tips," she said with a smile. "Here, take this money and keep it for me. I want to save up and open a vegetable and fruit store." Ntim, listening intently, nodded. "That's wonderful, Anima. But I think it's better if you open a bank account and save your money there." Anima agreed, but her heart was full of joy, knowing she was one step closer to her dream. "You're right. I'll open the account. But if you need any money to buy something for yourself, don't hesitate to use it." Ntim shook his head, smiling. "No, this is for your dream, Anima. I won't touch it." 2 weeks passed, and the same young man, whose name was Chumasi, came by again, purchasing more bananas. This time, however, after giving his usual tip, he asked Anima for her contact number. Anima hesitated, a bit surprised. "I'm sorry, but I can't give you my number. I'm engaged, and I'm loyal to the man I love," she explained firmly. But Chumasi persisted. "Why not? I could change your life. Is your fiancé richer than me? Can he give you the life you deserve? Just give me a chance, Anima. I could provide for you, make your life easier." Anima's face hardened. "No amount of money can make me betray the person I love. Ntim may not be rich, but he has my heart. Please take back the money you gave me. I'm no longer comfortable accepting it." Chumasi's face filled with frustration, but he realized there was no point in pressing further. "Are you sure?" he asked one last time. "Your boyfriend can't offer you what I can. Just think about it." Anima handed the money back to him and said, "I don't need to think about it. I love Ntim, and no amount of money or luxury can change that. Now, please leave." Defeated, Chumasi walked away, still impressed by Anima's loyalty and strength. Later that day, he made a phone call. "Ntim," Chumasi said into the phone, "I tested her, just like you asked. She didn't fall for it. She's a real one, man. I pushed hard, offered her money, tried to tempt her, but she wouldn't even give me her contact. Her love for you is genuine." Ntim, who had been waiting for this moment, smiled with a deep sense of relief. "I knew it," he said, his voice filled with pride. "Thank you, Chumasi. I needed to know if her love for me was real, or if someone could come along and win her over with wealth, just like I did." Ntim stood at the window of the house, watching as Anima packed up her bananas for another day of work on the streets of Kumasi. It was still hard for him to believe how genuine and pure her love for him was. Unlike the many women he had met before, those who were drawn to his wealth, his success, and his lifestyle, Anima was different. She was the embodiment of love, loyalty, and humility, and it moved him in ways he couldn't put into words. But Ntim wasn't just a regular man, and he wasn't the houseboy he had led Anima to believe he was. The house, the cars, the company, all of it belonged to him. For years, Ntim had been betrayed by women who pretended to love him, but only sought his wealth. After facing countless heartbreaks, he had decided that this time he would test the sincerity of the next woman who entered his life. He hired Mr. Bonsu to pose as the house owner and Chumasi to play the role of a wealthy suitor, all to test Anima's true intentions. And through it all, Anima had remained devoted, never wavering in her love for him. She had even failed to mention how other men had tried to win her heart. seeing it as normal and insignificant. Her silence in those matters only solidified her character to him. Looking back at how she had cared for him when he was at his lowest, Ntim knew he had found the woman he'd been searching for all along, a woman who would love him through both prosperity and hardship. Anima's sacrifices had touched him deeply. She had supported him financially, handed over her hard-earned money to him without a second thought, and treated him with respect and love, despite the many challenges they faced. He decided it was time to help her realize her dreams and become the successful woman she deserved to be. Ntim's plan began to unfold when he contacted one of his business partners, a Chinese manager who ran a large fruit juice company in Kumasi. He arranged for the company to offer a fruit supply contract to Anima, providing her the opportunity to expand her small banana business into something much larger and more sustainable. However, Ntim didn't want Anima to know that he was behind it. He wanted to see how she would respond to success on her own terms, without the influence of his wealth. He assigned one of his staff members to ensure the deal was presented to Anima, keeping his involvement completely hidden. A few days later, Anima was approached by a young man while she was selling her bananas on the street. He bought a few bananas and, after a brief conversation, asked her a question that left her both shocked and excited. "Do you think you'd be able to supply fruits to a Chinese company in large quantities?" he asked casually. Anima blinked, trying to process the offer. "Me? Supply fruits to a company? I never thought of that, but yes, I can do it," she replied, her heart pounding with excitement. The young man handed her his contact information, explaining that the company would be in touch with more details. Anima couldn't wait to share the news with Ntim when she got home that evening. "Ntim!" she exclaimed, bursting through the door. "You won't believe what just happened. I've been offered a contract to supply fruits to a Chinese company. Can you believe it?" Ntim listened calmly, hiding his smile. He knew all about the offer, but he wanted to see how she would react if he played the role of a skeptic. "I don't know, Anima," he said cautiously. "I'm not sure if it's a good idea for you to take on such a big contract. You've been doing so well with your banana business. Maybe you should stick to what you know." Anima paused, her excitement faltering. She trusted Ntim's judgment more than anything, and if he thought it wasn't a good idea, she wouldn't argue. "Okay," she said quietly. "If you think it's best for me to continue with what I've been doing, then I'll do that." Ntim was taken aback by her response. He had expected at least some resistance, some pushback, but instead, Anima had simply accepted his advice without question. Her submission and respect for his opinion left him speechless. Why is she so kind, so trusting, he wondered. He had been testing her for so long, but every test only proved her to be more loyal and genuine than he had imagined. The next day, Ntim couldn't bear to keep the opportunity from her any longer. "Anima," he said, sitting her down, "I've been thinking, and I don't want to hold you back. I think it's a great opportunity for you to take the contract with the Chinese company. You should go for it." Anima's eyes lit up as she hugged him tightly. "Thank you so much, Ntim. I was worried I might be making a mistake, but your support means everything to me. I'll work hard and make this opportunity count." Ntim smiled, watching her happiness unfold before his eyes. Anima's life had transformed in ways she never imagined. After receiving the contract to supply fruits to the Chinese company, she worked tirelessly, moving from one village to another, talking to local farmers, and buying their produce. Within just a few months, her hard work had paid off. She became a wealthy and successful businesswoman. Her fruit supply business flourished, and she was able to build her own house, moving out of the rented apartment she once shared with Ntim. All this time, Ntim continued to pretend to be jobless, allowing Anima to take care of him financially, he observed quietly, marveling at her dedication, loyalty, and love. Despite his feigned unemployment, Anima never complained or showed signs of frustration. Instead, she supported him wholeheartedly, even giving him the keys to a brand new car one day. "Ntim," she said with a smile, "I want to thank you for everything. Our relationship has been a blessing in my life. Even though you're not working, I don't feel it. I'm okay with how things are. Please use this car for Uber to support us." Ntim was overwhelmed. He had seen women chase after money and wealth in the past, but Anima was different. She didn't care about his status or income. She loved him purely and unconditionally. Tears welled up in his eyes as he accepted the car key. "Thank you, Anima," he whispered, astonished by her generosity and unwavering love. Every day, Ntim would drive the car out, pretending to work, but in reality, he would relax at his luxurious home, the one he had kept secret from Anima. He would return to their rented apartment in the evening, continuing the facade of being a struggling man. He wanted to be absolutely sure that Anima's love wasn't swayed by wealth. After a few months, Ntim decided it was time to take the next step. One evening, as they sat together, he took Anima's hand and said, "It's time for us to go home and marry." Anima was shocked and deeply touched. "Thank you, Ntim," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "Thank you for this proposal." Without hesitation, Anima gave Ntim money to buy the necessary items for their marriage ceremony. Ntim was taken aback. "This is my responsibility," he said gently. "I know," Anima replied with a smile, "but you've just started work, and I want to support you, financially and emotionally, to make our marriage beautiful." They planned a modest traditional marriage, followed by a simple white wedding in Anima's hometown. But on the day of the white wedding, everything changed. As Anima stood in awe, she saw a convoy of beautiful cars arriving at the venue. Among the guests were familiar faces, people who had bought bananas from her on the streets. There was Mr. Bonsu, Chumasi, and many others who had played a role in her life. They all greeted Ntim, saying, "Congratulations, boss." Celebrities, gospel musicians, and influential figures soon joined, and within a few hours, what was supposed to be a modest wedding turned into a grand and luxurious celebration. As money was sprayed on Anima and Ntim, Anima couldn't hold back her tears. She had gone from being a humble banana seller to being celebrated alongside her true love in the most extravagant way. She realized in that matter how far she had come, how the sacrifices she had made had been worth it. Mr. Bonsu, who had once pretended to be the house owner and even had Ntim arrested, was revealed to be a trusted staff member in Ntim's company. He had been assigned by Ntim to play that role to test Anima's loyalty and character. At the wedding, Ntim stood before the crowd and shared their story. He explained the sacrifices Anima had made for him, how she had supported him when he pretended to be poor, and how she had proven time and again that her love was true and unwavering. "I tested her," he said, his voice filled with emotion, "to see how far she would go to hold on to our love. And she surpassed every expectation. Anima's love is pure, loyal, and unconditional, and I am the luckiest man in the world to have her by my side." Anima wept tears of joy as Ntim praised her, and everyone at the wedding was moved by their story. They had become the perfect example of a love built on trust, sacrifice, and commitment. Their union was blessed, and they went on to have a beautiful family, raising children in a home filled with love and devotion. Helping and lifting others up is a powerful act, one that changes lives and creates unbreakable bonds. Ntim had lifted Anima out of poverty, but more importantly, Anima had lifted Ntim's spirit, showing him what true love really meant. Their story is a testament to the power of love, loyalty, and sacrifice in a relationship. As the Bible says in 1 Corinthians 13:4-7, "Love is patient, love is kind. It does not envy, it does not boast, it is not proud, it does not dishonor others, it is not self-seeking, it is not easily angered, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres." Anima and Ntim lived these words, showing the world that true love endures all challenges. To all our viewers, thank you for watching this heartwarming story. Please share where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to Anant's Web of Tales for more captivating stories like this. May God bless us and guide us to meet true love, men who will love us unconditionally, and women who will stand by us through thick and thin. Let's pray that He removes all fake lovers from our lives and protects us with love like that of Anima and Ntim. Say Amen.